Hi. I hope everyone's having a good summer day. We are easing our way into summer over here. Thank you so much, whether you're attending live or catching the replay another time. I do that on purpose because I know with time zones and everybody's coming from different places, sometimes it's just easier to catch the replay. If you do catch the replay, I'd love to have you introduce yourself in the comments, what brought you to the presentation today, and feel free to ask any questions that you have during the presentation in the comments box. I still get notifications about them and I can respond to those at any time. If you're new to my world or to these trainings, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I'm a chronic pain strategist. I'm board certified in biofeedback, and I've worked my way through all kinds of chronic pain settings. I'm here now in a virtual sort of educational setting with the mission that I really want to connect women with this information that they're not getting in standard care for chronic pain. And so if you see me looking to the side, I'm just tracking with my notes so that I can provide you as much value as I can during this brief training. So if you've been around for a while, you know that I'm a huge proponent of understanding the science of chronic pain. I think this is so empowering for women to finally get this information. And I think it's one of the most pivotal elements to your recovery. And guess what? In a lifetime of chronic pain, most women have yet to be given this information. And so central sensitization is something that I've talked about before, but I'd really like to lay it out for you in the most digestible way that I know how today. And so when I refer to central sensitization, this has a lot of overlap with neuroplastic pain, fibromyalgia, pain that just won't go away, pain that occurred after trauma, pain that occurred after an injury but seems to just keep sticking around. This can tie together a lot of different things, and there's a lot of different phrases for it, and a lot of them have overlap. But I think the best way to describe this is to just kind of say simply that the brain creates pain. And every time it does, the brain gets better and better at creating it the next time around. So just like anything else we learn, our brain can learn pain, and then pain becomes an automatic response to certain triggers. This could be certain jobs, certain chores, tasks, social situations, certain thoughts, certain events. And neuroplasticity is an important word here too, because it's the idea that our brain's wiring or circuitry is constantly adapting based on our experiences. And this can happen in a positive or a negative direction. So while our brain can be trained to produce pain, it can also be trained to stop. And so the body doesn't produce pain. We know that that's where we feel pain, but the body does not produce it. The body sends danger messages to our brain, and the brain decides what to do with those messages. The brain decides immediately, this process happens so quickly, it decides immediately whether it should use pain to protect you or not. So pain is protective, it's a protective mechanism, but the brain can become overprotective, or the alarm system overly sensitive. And this process of oversensitivity or learned pain overprotectiveness is central sensitization. So you may have lingering worries about damage, injury, something that's broken inside of you, and I don't blame you. I'm sure your doctor showed you your images or a spine model or whatever else to indicate what was wrong. And we know that, and also many people have the experience where their doctors couldn't find anything to describe what was wrong. Either way, we know that most tissue injuries heal within 3 to 6 months, and it's usually an overprotective, overly sensitive nervous system that can maintain chronic pain after that. And when I say overprotective or overly sensitive nervous system, this isn't just because of you or who you are. This is something that occurs sometimes outside of our control. It's just how the brain works, how neuroplasticity works. The brain can just easily become overprotective. It's not your fault. And we also know that imaging abnormalities like herniated discs, bulging discs, arthritis, tears are also present in people without pain. They're a normal sign of aging and aren't always the cause of pain. We also know that people can have pain without any injuries or damage or abnormalities seen on imaging. So the one thing that all of these ways of having pain have in common is that the brain produces pain. Not injuries, not the body, the brain. So remember this analogy that pain is like an overly sensitive alarm system. Pain is, I know it doesn't always feel this way, but it's a wonderful and protective internal alarm system in our body. It's based on our need to survive. It alerts us to danger, and this motivates us to take action and stay safe. It keeps us from using our arm when it's broken. It helps us remove our hand from the hot pan that's burning it, something we do reflexively, and it pushes us to take action when we cut ourselves with a knife. And for years, we thought of pain as a measure of tissue damage. We now think of pain as a complex and sophisticated protective mechanism. Think of it as an alarm system made up primarily of the brain, the spinal cord, nerves, and sensory receptors or danger detectors. These danger detectors are distributed all over our body, and they act as the eyes of the brain whose job it is to keep us safe, to protect us. These danger detectors send messages from an affected area in your body through the spinal cord to the brain. And your brain, using all of the information available to it, such as past experiences, memories, mood, emotions, trust, feelings of safety, input from your senses, degree of threat, it will produce pain with that. If it has all this information, it will produce pain if it thinks we need to be protected. And I recently thought about this. This one day I was driving through a neighborhood in my town, and someone's home motion sensor light was going off. And I think I've used this example before, but my car was so far from their home. I was on the street and their home was set back a bit from the street. And so it really didn't make sense to me. Why was this going off when I drove by? I couldn't see how that was helpful for them. And your pain alarm system, you could think about this similarly as a motion sensor light. The light goes off to warn you of movement near your home, a potential intruder, to get your attention. The intentions of this alarm system are good, right? Similarly, pain will go off to let you know that something is initially wrong. But what if those motion sensor lights were on a setting that was too sensitive or too reactive, like my neighbor's light? They might go off when an animal walked by or when someone was driving on their street 20 feet away. There's no intruder or risk of danger to the home. It's just an annoying light that keeps going on and on all night long. And so this happens enough nights in a row that, maybe they'll make it a note to themselves to fix it tomorrow. Or, I'm thinking about, like, if this were my house and I'm finally sitting down with a cup of tea, my kids are in bed, I'm finally finished with my errands, and I'm watching my favorite show on Netflix, which is The Resident right now. I don't know if anyone's seen that. Anyway, I don't want to digress, but the motion sensor light goes off. And that's alarming, right? Because the intention of this light is to alert me to any intruders or somebody walking close to my house at night. And it goes off right by my window. Everything was peaceful, quiet, and relaxed. I don't see anything outside. Why would this be happening right now? And it's tired and frustrating, and this is mounting because this has happened 2 nights in a row, let's say. A sensitive alarm doesn't care what it's interrupting. A relaxing moment to yourself, a quiet bath, a good book, or a party. And we can think of pain like this alarm system, a finely tuned alarm system, and even one that can become oversensitive or overprotective and not really care what it's interrupting. When pain has been present for a long time, the pain alarm system can become faulty too. It can become sensitive. It can become too reactive as well. And the threshold for danger becomes lower, and the alarm repeatedly sounds too soon. So multiple factors can contribute to an extra sensitive alarm system. So we need to reduce threat and engage in behaviors that regulate the nervous system to recalibrate it, that communicate safety to the nervous system. So what I'm really saying is that at the center of all of this, when we think about what drives that pain alarm system, the answer is threat, and especially how threatening we think the pain is. And depending on how much threat we perceive, it can drive all kinds of things. It can drive avoidance, depression, anxiety, distress, and certainly more pain. But when pain is understood to be low threat, we can escape from a loop or cycle of fear, avoidance, and pain. And so you can see how chronic pain, which is technically pain that has lasted 6 months or longer, is more complex than acute pain, something that might occur shortly after an injury. Chronic pain is processed across multiple brain regions, and it's associated with a lot of changes across the nervous system. And these changes in the nervous system can cause pain to persist after injuries have healed because the threat detection system has become more overprotective or sensitive over time. Not all chronic pain is alike, however. The ICD-11 the Diagnostic Manual, recently distinguished between pain that is secondary to an injury and pain that is primary or not secondary to anything else, or when the nervous system has gotten involved. And this has been called several names: um, nociplastic pain, central sensitization, neuroplastic pain, nonspecific pain. But if you're thinking that your pain alarm system may have become more sensitive over the years, know that it's not your fault. It's your brain and your nervous system just getting too much practice at the wrong thing, all in an effort to protect you. The good news is that you can recalibrate the pain alarm system. Now, I just want to give you, I'm thinking of this just now, an example of, um, our brain really gets into patterns and repetition, and then it likes to repeat those things. And sometimes it's hard to kind of break those repetitions. And some people don't know this, but I was a music major in college, and so I had to do a lot of performances. And when we had to perform, it had to all be from memory. So I would be practicing, and I think I've got it just right. And then I'd go see my teacher and I'd play it for him, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you're playing the wrong note in this one spot. We have to fix that." Well, I had practiced it so many times that my brain was used to my fingers moving in a certain way, and it took a lot of intentional practice, changes, noticing in order to change the way my fingers would play that particular part of the music. And the bad news is that our brain can pick up patterns of any kind and keep repeating it. But the good news is that you can relearn, reteach, give your brain and your body new experiences, and you can recalibrate your pain alarm system in the same way that I learned how to play that song with the right fingering. Okay, let's dive into common symptoms and the impact of central sensitization, especially how it relates to our busy, high achieving lifestyles, because it can manifest in a variety of ways, and it's really important to recognize the symptoms so we can better manage them. Okay, so common symptoms and how they can affect our daily activities and productivity. The first is heightened pain sensitivity. So you might notice that pain seems more intense than it once did. Sometimes even minor bumps, light touches can feel excruciating. I remember at one point when my body was so sensitive, I remember kind of like lightly bumping my shoulder into a doorway. And my neck was so sensitive that it just sent searing pain up my neck. And I think I probably was flared up for hours after that. But this heightened sensitivity can make it hard to focus and even maintain your usual productivity levels. So when pain is constantly at the forefront of your mind, it's challenging to focus on the tasks that you're trying to focus on. You might find yourself avoiding certain activities, unable to sit or stand for long periods. And of course, we know this can impact work and any kind of routine. Fatigue is another common symptom. You might feel exhausted even after a full night's sleep, which is probably much harder to achieve than it once was. And it's not just a regular tiredness, it's a deep, unrelenting fatigue that can sap your energy and motivation. And it makes it difficult to keep up with a busy schedule. And so you might find that you need more breaks, you struggle to get through the day, you have to cut back on things that you enjoy. And this can be particularly tough for those of us who are used to juggling multiple tasks and responsibilities. So you can see where I'm going with all these symptoms and everything they interfere with. Feel free to jump into the chat and tell us how your symptoms of pain or central sensitization are interfering with what you want to be doing. Sleep disturbance is another common symptom. Many people with central sensitization experience trouble sleeping, so you might have difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, getting restful sleep, and of course, poor sleep can lead to a vicious cycle, worsening your fatigue and your pain sensitivity. When we have a lack of restful sleep, it means you're kind of starting each day at a deficit, right? It can be harder to wake up, get moving, maintain the energy needed for a high level of productivity or a high paced lifestyle. And over time, maybe you can push through for a while, but eventually it leads to burnout. I experienced this myself. Cognitive issues is another common symptom. Sometimes people refer to this as fibro fog or brain fog, and this can make it difficult to concentrate, remember things, make decisions. And of course, this feels so frustrating for people who are otherwise very productive, very high achieving, high performing, people who are used to being sharp and super on top of things. But when your brain feels foggy, everything takes longer. Simple tasks can become overwhelming. You might find it difficult to stay organized or remember. important details. And this can be so frustrating in professional settings too, where, having sharp mental acuity is really required a lot of the time. Okay, lastly, mood changes are a common symptom. So, central sensitization can obviously affect mood. You might find yourself feeling more anxious, irritable, depressed. Mood changes can definitely affect our productivity and our interactions with others. Being in constant pain and feeling fatigue can understandably affect our mood as well. And you might notice that you're feeling more irritable or less patient with colleagues, friends, family. This can strain relationships and make it even harder to kind of keep a positive outlook. First, it's important to understand these symptoms as well as their impact. And when we can start to recognize what's happening in our body, but also understanding it from a neuroscience perspective, how we started this conversation, we can start to implement strategies to kind of mitigate those effects and maintain a high achieving lifestyle. I know that sounds unachievable, but it is. In the next section, the next bit, we'll talk about some practical ways to manage this so you can continue to excel in your busy life without being held back so much by these symptoms. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about time management strategies. Prioritizing tasks is really important, focusing on what's most important. Scheduling breaks, even a 5-minute break every hour, or more if you need it, can make a significant difference. Delegating, not being afraid to delegate, and using tools, things that are helpful for you to stay on track. You can use apps, timers. I know my watch reminds me to stand up or to breathe. Tools like these can help you manage your schedule more effectively. Maybe pace yourself, adding in some breaks, and reduce the mental load of keeping track of everything on top of all of that, especially when brain fog might be at its highest. Balance, that thing we never achieve. It's always changing, but balance between work, activity, rest, it's so important. Setting boundaries between work time and personal time, planning some downtime. So when you think about your day, we need to plan for, you know, activities that require physical movement, activities that require mental use, right? And recovery activities. And we should include a cycle of all of those things throughout each of our days as much as we can. Will there be days when you can't cycle through those as well? Sure, of course, but the more often you do it, the less sensitive your body will be on those days where it's hard to pace. And listening to your body, paying attention to your body's signals, and don't push through the pain and fatigue. If you need to rest, allow yourself to take that time without guilt. And I talk about in some of my past trainings about how rest doesn't have to mean you're sitting on the couch sleeping or watching Netflix. Resting your body physically can still mean that you're doing things mentally and being productive or taking time to recover. Self-care is crucial, so we really have to stay on top of this, on top of our sleep hygiene, fueling our body with nutrients and good foods, things that provide us energy we need to have throughout the day. Physical activity, so not engaging in any physical activity can result in deconditioning, fear, more avoidance, and it actually makes the body more sensitive over time. Engaging in too much activity, the extremes, overdoing it, pushing through for all the reasons that we do. Neither of those extremes are helpful with central sensitization. We have to move our body, try to identify the things that we want to do, and pace ourselves as we do those things throughout our day. And of course, mindfulness and relaxation, incorporating practices like meditation, deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation into your daily routine can reduce stress. So our stress goes up throughout the day. We want to just take a few opportunities throughout the day to bring it back down. And this can improve your ability to cope with pain. And remember, the goal is to create a balanced approach that allows you to maintain your high standards without sacrificing your health and without flaring up your pain. I believe, and I know because I've done it and I've seen it, that it doesn't have to be this way, that we can't do the things we want to do. There are strategies that, when implemented, when we do the hard work, when we have a strategy that matches our lifestyle and our unique situation, it is possible to engage in the things that you want to do without flaring up your pain. And implementing some of these strategies we talked about today and self-care practices can help you manage central sensitization more effectively. And the goal is to stay as productive as you want to be and fulfilled in your life as you want to be without flaring up your pain as much. And of course, when I'm doing these trainings, I have to provide education and information that is as applicable as possible to as many people as possible. That's my mission, right? To get this education and help women who are listening improve their pain experiences. And these general approaches, while they are helpful and backed by science, they can't be applied to every single person in the same exact way. And I think it's helpful to have a strategy. So I'm a chronic pain strategist. So what I do with the science-backed information and education with the women in my program is that I take this information and then we apply it to their unique day, their unique life. We apply it in a way that's complementary to their lifestyle and what's important to them, and we teach them how to pace and schedule their day and alternate activities in a way that feels seamless and it just fits them like a glove. And I can only do that when we have more touch points, right? When someone's showing up for calls a couple times a week and I know a little bit more about their pain issues and all of that. So if that's something that you think would be helpful for you, a holistic, complementary to your lifestyle, high touch type of program where you can get a strategy that's science backed, but also applicable to your unique life and situation and pain experience. If that sounds like something you would like to learn more about, let me know. Please type in the comments book or connect or me, and I will respond to that. I'll reach out and we can book a call. And I like to think about these calls. If you're interested in my program, I'd love for you to show up for a call. I think of them as a way to learn a little bit more about your pain, learn about what you've tried and what your goals are. And I think of it as we're just sort of auditing it to see if you're a good fit for the program, because the program isn't a great fit for everybody. And you have to be ready for the work. And if that sounds like you and you are ready for this work and you want to be considered for the program, please feel free to comment me on this training right now or reach out to my DMs. They are always open. I try to respond as quickly as I can, usually within 24 to 48 hours. I'm just going to kind of go over to the chat because I see it is a little more active when I last checked. It looks like just some comments that, despite the pain, they're moving a little bit more. Movement helps them mentally and physically. And I think that's great. Like I said, the extremes where we're not moving at all or we're moving too much, it's overactivity, it's flaring up our pain. Neither of those extremes are good. But if we can find a sweet spot somewhere in between, that's a really great place to start. And so what I do with the women in my program when we're talking about that sweet spot is we are finding their very specific baseline. Where is their starting point? And I take in a lot of information about their situation, how it feels, what they want to do. There are so many elements involved in this, and we talk about what their baseline is. We create a plan, we look at priorities, we come up with a strategy so that they can start doing the things that they miss, that they never thought they do, that they want to do. And they start with a baseline and they build from it in a really strategic way so that they aren't going to increase their frequency and intensity of flare-ups. And what, in fact, we want to see is a decrease in frequency and intensity of flare-ups. And, I think of it as an accelerator, my program as an accelerator, because, some women, it's a steeper hill to climb and they get there eventually, but it takes a little longer. Some women will say, I actually forgot about my pain for a few hours today. And then the next week they'll say, I forgot about my pain for a few days today. And the next week they say, my life felt so full, I didn't even think about my pain this week. And everybody's story looks different. Everybody's recovery looks different. And it's about finding the strategy that fits your story like a glove. And so that's sort of my goal with the program. But I hope this general education was helpful today. Something to get you thinking, maybe something that'll spur a new type of self-care, new type of movement, new way of thinking about activity. Because I know you're all busy. You have things you want to do and you want to get back to doing. So I hope it was helpful in some way. I will see you all next week for my next free live training. And thank you so much for attending. It fills my heart so much to see viewers. And please let me know how I can support you if there's something you would like to hear about at the next live training. Talk to you all soon.